mayor and the auditor, does the city have the money to enter into a development agreement or even think of the idea of a development in Waterworks Park?
So we have something on the table. I can't answer that. The proposal.
What can you guys afford?
The opinion of Mr. Rose is that, depending on how we work this, it would be no money out of the city's pocket.
Do what?
Those are his statements.
No.
It would be no money out of the city's pocket.
No cost to the city.
But yet, we do not have a proposal.
Yeah.
We have a conceptual drawing. I think Mr. Lipshaw explained it very well. There's nothing more than a drawing. We are just now having a conversation or trying to ask the council, do we want to move forward and start talking with this gentleman? It's pretty straightforward. I don't know. You guys are asking a lot of questions, but there's nothing going on yet. So,
Mr. Wilbur, what do you think of this so-called development in Waterworks Park? You're going to have to be the last one to sign off on it.
Council's got to be the one that does that.
And you're going to have to advise them into this project.
I think there's a lot of work ahead before anything can happen, Jerry. There's a whole lot of things that have to be looked at, have to be considered, have to be developed.
Do you remember back to the Polar Project, how that went a couple years back?
Go back to some of the ones even before that, Jerry.
Right, there you go.
And a lot of ground plowed.
Yeah.
Hasn't been much been fruitful from it yet.
Thank you.
That's what council, I think, is trying to do here, what I hear. They're trying to work together to make something.
Thank you. Thanks, Mayor.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes, hi, Alex Thomas, and you're from North Carriage Lane? That's in Catawba, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'm Alex Thomas, and I'm from Catawba also, but I'm a Portland resident. I feel like I am, even though I don't vote here. And I'm with the Portland Lighthouse Conservancy, speaking unofficially. I've talked with Mayor Leone. You are all aware, of course, of our initiative on the lighthouse. And I wasn't going to speak back because I told Rich, shoot me if I say anything, but from the discussions, it's worthwhile talking about our very little piece of a pixel, a small piece. And I hear a lot about the resistance to an initiative by a group of local citizens, most of which are from Fort Clinton. And I have to admit that, Vince, you were not forthcoming with me, as I think a number of the council members mentioned, in terms of directly saying, no, we have other plans for the waterfront. You talked about ADA accessibility and other things, and I think that we have an opportunity for this lighthouse, which is a small piece. I did happen to speak because Linda talked about in an email to me that some of the difficulties of getting something like this going is that we have future development. Well, I called Mike Rose, and I had a very nice conversation with him on Thursday, or it was Friday. And it was about a half-hour conversation. And he mentioned a number of things. And number one, he says nothing on that waterfront, as long as it is temporary. And we have, as has been presented to you, and I have here, and you can all see this, it can be anywhere. The council can determine where this lighthouse is going to be. It doesn't have, and will not, as long, as Mike Rose said, as long as it does not interfere with future development. And indeed, we have acknowledged in the lighthouse development, because by the time you guys get done, it's going to be 5 years before anything is on that waterfront. You're not even at the point of talking to these people. And I talked to them because I called them on the phone. I looked on the website and it said Mike Rose Development, and I called them and I chatted with them. And each of you could do the same thing. I can't believe that you're talking about it the way you are now. And so anyway, he said, you can put that anywhere on the waterfront as long as I'm putting 30, I don't know, after it gets over $150, I can't remember the money. He said, I'm putting over $30 million into this development. And he didn't talk about owning it or whether the city would own it or whether he would buy it. I don't think he really cares. I think he is excited about...
What's this guy's name?
Alex Thomas.
What's your address?
4107 Barclay Drive.
In Catawba.
Yes.
Mr. Yonke,
yes, sir.
you You're out of order.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
We're not at a
You
Catawba
are out of
Township
order,
trustee
Mr.
meeting.
Young.
We're at a
police
city
chief-
of Port
the
Clinton
police chief
meeting.
is from Catawba.
Mr. Yankee,
The
you
chief
are
of
out-
police is, oh, yeah, okay.
Mr. Yankee, you are out of order.
You're right.
Please stop talking.
Go ahead.
Bottom line
Catawba.
is, I think that Mike Rose is legitimate. He's the authentic deal. It's not up for me to be involved in whether or not he's authentic or not from your standpoint. That's above my pay grade. It's your pay grade. But from my impression, he said that if he were the person, because if it's not him, it ain't anybody right now, it's going to be 2 or 3 years before anything happens. Meanwhile, there is this pixel, this opportunity to put a small thing on the waterfront that's a part of our heritage. And I think we really ought to be involved, and we ought to be enthusiastic about it. We are independent, we are for whatever the council decides. So I really do hope, and I know it's a small thing, and it looks like it's just a personal thing, but it's not. It is about Port Clinton. We've lived here for 40 years. You've all lived here most of your lives. But this is a chance. We've been through the Jet Express. We've been through all the waterfront development, but this is one small thing. And I hope that we can meet any objection that you might have, and we will work cooperatively to see, without any cost to the city, that this is nothing going to be but a benefit to Port Clinton. We can assure that it's continuance for the next 50 years, and I can promise you that.
I hope that I had conveyed, Mr. Thomas, maybe I didn't, to you and Mr. Norgard, that we are certainly willing and able. We just have these two things that are taking place in the spring, and it really affects where that lighthouse is going to go.
And
so when we get those dates, I mean, but we just
All
need
right,
to know what's going on.
no, let's just get down to the bottom line. You talked about it in an email today, because I've got the details on this. You talked about a development above Derby Pond and a walkway by the Corps of Engineers. Now, the Corps of
Engineers is going, they are going to enhance and stabilize that shoreline that covers all three places that you guys have suggested. They're going to be there working. We just need to know when, how long, and that's all I'm asked. That's all I've asked of you guys.
Now, you mentioned about the walkway.
Yes,
the
I
walkway
did.
currently goes around a tree at the east end of Waterworks Park. I've got all the details here. That walkway is entirely independent of any place where this potential lighthouse could go. And so I appreciate, under your aegis and legitimate concern about the future, but that you're using this perhaps as a way to sort of delay the ongoing progress, because these are independent events.
If I was going to delay it, I would tell you that.
Okay.
Fairly honest person.
I will trust you on that.
I'm just concerned that we are going to have equipment on the land. You guys have spent an inordinate amount of time making this better and restoring it. I would hate to see a dump truck, a crane, or whatever harm it, and I don't want it. That's why there's that work going on there. Just let us get those dates of the work and let you know.
And what timeline are we looking at when you talk about, we'll get back to you?
I don't know, a couple weeks.
Depends on how fast they want. If I could just clear up one thing for sure. You're talking about this can go at any area. The only thing that I have received from the owner is a proposal.
Well, you come tomorrow night, you'll hear from the owner.
I gave you your time. Please listen to what I have to say, please. What I have in my possession is this document stating latitude and longitude of exactly where he wants it to go, with some other language that speaks very specifically on if it has to be moved and other different topics. Something that was unacceptable. That's as far as it went.
That sounds like backpedaling to me.
Mr. Britt, excuse me?
Sounds like backpedaling to me.
You can call it what you like, sir.
That's what I call it.
Very good.
Anyone? Mrs. Douglas.
Yes, my name is June Douglas. I live in Fort Clinton at 318 Garfield Drive. Madam President, Mayor Leon, everyone else, the council members, I'm extremely nervous. I don't like talking in public, okay? According to what I've seen tonight, it looks as though this thing is going to go on our waterfront, according to Benko. Is it Benko? I can't see it. Mr. Kapler, I believe. I loved your statement, okay? Now I'd like to read mine, okay, if I can get through it, if you don't mind. It's short. All over the country, cities large and small are seeking ways to reinvent their communities with green space. Port Clinton should be no different. Just how friendly to the environment is Port Clinton? That's question number one. I moved here in 2009 because of the small town atmosphere. I started coming to the council meetings just to find out what was going on, and at the time, I felt things were doing well without my interference. Since 2009, I have seen a slow but steady improvement moving forward within the city. A real sense of community, struggling to reinvent itself, as many communities do with the people that have the means and vision to do so. I must say that I have been quite puzzled about this mysterious Waterworks Park, that I couldn't seem to locate it or even know where it was. I saw the sign, Waterworks Park, but for some reason I didn't see anything that resembled a park. Then I posed the question to a longtime resident. I guess I'm a little slow at times. You see, to me, the name implies trees, park benches, flowers, fountains of all shapes and sizes. A real green space for the public to relax and enjoy. Instead, I find out that I have spent many hours along the waterway watching my husband, my sister, and brother-in-law fishing and watching the boats go by, not even realizing I was at Waterworks Park. Okay, since the public meeting in February, I've spent many hours on the internet looking at the Ottawa County Auditor's photo of this park. What do I see? I see a long path along the lakeshore. What does it lack? Trees, benches, fountains, flowers, and most important, people. Parks are meant to be public green space. Those of you who have lived here all of your lives don't realize how important this park could be to development of Port Clinton's future if done correctly. When I found out that the prehistoric forest was closing down, I thought to myself, wouldn't it really be cool to see some of those wonderful pieces of art along the area of the lakeshore? That in itself would draw many people to the downtown area. Whether you know it or not, on Google Earth, Mystery Hill and the prehistoric forest are still there as places of interest, even though it is closed down. Now, to get to my point, the town meeting that took place last month on the so-called Rose development of a lodge, personally I think it's a bad idea for Port Clinton to add another big ugly building to the lakeshore. And in this case, probably many. Okay, that's not an statement. Okay, I'm ad-libbing. In any future, okay, wait a minute, okay. It may be a good time for Mr. Rose and his developers, or a good thing for Mr. Rose and his developers, but I believe it will damage any future for the downtown area. Mr. Rose and his associate used terminology used by many good salesmen over the past to get what they wanted, without any concrete promise of the well-being for the community that it invades. So many communities are fighting for green space in cities around the country, and you want to build another huge obstruction to the lakeshore. This can only add to more pollution to the lake and to the community. It is time for the City of Port Clinton to enforce the laws already on the books against the owners of blighted properties in the downtown and West End areas, to make the improvements to their properties that have caused this area to depreciate in its values. I would like to bring the Council's attention to Ordinance 1327.08, General Exterior Maintenance Requirements, which defines that some of the structures in the downtown and residential properties are not in compliance with the law. I would also like to know who the property maintenance officer is in Port Clinton. Also, see Ordinance 1327.14, etc. In closing, some of the colleges in the state of Ohio do offer classes on urban ecology, environmental science, which covers a sustainable environment. Perhaps our city officials are looking in the wrong direction and should consider and reconsider whatever this council allows that will affect the future generations of Port Clinton. Perhaps we should tap these young minds that are so creative and knowledgeable about global warming and restoration of green space in communities. Maybe, just maybe, we should do some research without the aid of costly, inappropriate development. Port Clinton has, in the past, and now has its own unique identity of a small lakeshore community. It does not need another building along the lakeshore. Perhaps Port Clinton should seek a restoration project that would promote long-term ecotourism that would enhance our community rather than making it look as though it was thrown together as a last-minute fix-it project. There are many properties that look abandoned in our community that should be addressed and occupied before we add more structures. I ask the council to view the 4-part documentary that it's called Eden's Lost and Found, which shows you how many different cities around the country, okay, that have been blighted, and they're slowly restoring them, and actually people are going to them. This waterfront is very important. You can't keep on popping up buildings all over the dang place, excuse my language, but you know, you've got more condos than you need. You know, and then I hear all these people that don't live here, you know, around, you know, year round. I live here year round. I don't want to look at some stupid, ugly buildings. I don't, you know, when I come in Port Clinton, I don't go all the way up to Fremont Drive or whatever it's called and then go to my house. No, I come down Lakeshore Drive so I can see the water. When it's nice, I roll down my window so I can smell the stinky fish and so I can hear the wonderful water and the waves hitting, you know. Even going down Perry Street, I'm always looking, you know, I'm keeping my eye on the road, but I'm still looking at the water. It's beautiful, and it's being destroyed. You know, the more buildings you put on that property, make it green. Bring people here because it's beautiful. Get your imaginations out of your back pocket. Get off of them. Get off your heinies and get out there and make this park beautiful, what it can be. It can have a beautiful small amphitheater. It can be someplace that people want to come and see. You guys made the mistake, and I don't know who was here when they put in Walmart, and when they moved the ferry line, they took it out of downtown. They made people walk. You know, they used to come to the stores downtown. And I have seen improvements. I know how hard these business owners are working to try to stay afloat. Open your eyes. We don't need another big developer. I'm sorry. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm sorry.
Mr. Norgard,
Yes, ma'am. I'll be brief, Madam Chairman. Just to elaborate on what the mayor said, that agreement is being rewritten by Mr. Grant. And he has become more flexible, and that is reflected in our proposal. Number 2, I promised not to kill or shoot Alex. And then number 3, I just want to thank Ms. Fanko for bringing the lighthouse issue before the full council. Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Frankie?